preamble to the constitution. So as I told you, what do you mean by preamble? Preamble is an introductory part of the statute, of any statute, that sets out the aims and objectives. What are the aims? What are the goals? What are the objectives? What is the purpose of having that law? So the Indian Constitution preamble tries to tell what is the objective, what is the aim of our constitution, and what is the purpose that we want to achieve through our constitution. So each and every word is important. Read it along with me, and then we will get into the details of each and every word, because it is very, very important. So we, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, and to secure to its citizens justice, social, economic, political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and opportunity, fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. Do in our Constituent Assembly this 26th day of November 1949, do hereby adopt, enact and give to ourselves this constitution. So the reason why I am telling it by heart is because I would have read it some 100 times before each and every class, right? You don't have to remember it by heart, so don't worry, but you need to understand each and every point in this preamble, right? So what is the most important thing? We the people. So we are the most powerful. Hey, hip hip hooray, right? At least on paper, we are the most powerful. No, we are definitely powerful, isn't it? All said and done, the government does have its excesses. Each government creates its own problems. It can create problems for many citizens, but ultimately, we are a democratic country. There are courts, we can go and take justice from them. There is mechanism for engagement, and more importantly, once in 5 years, if you don't like a government, you can throw them out, isn't it? So all those powers come to us from the constitution only, and we the people have given to ourselves this constitution. So we are supreme, we are sovereign, right? So that is the first thing that you need to remember. And what is the day of adoption? 26th November 1949. It commenced from 26 January 1950, but the date of adoption of the Indian Constitution is 26 November 1949, right? So now let's go to each and every word. So if you look at this, so it is the Supreme Statute of India, it's the fountainhead, right? Fountainhead means it is the starting point of all the powers, all the aspects of governance in our country. It is based on the objective resolution moved by Pandit Nehru in 1946 in the Constituent Assembly. These are just for information. Now this is a point, technical point, which you should be aware of. The preamble in itself cannot be enforced in a court of law. What does it mean? You can go to a court if your fundamental right is violated. You can go to a court if any other law which has been made on the basis of the constitution is violated. You can go to the court if some other provision of the constitution is violated. But you cannot go to the court for enforcing the preamble. You cannot go and say, "Arey, preamble says justice, this has been violated." You cannot do that. But does it mean that it is not important? No, it is very important. In Berubari case, in 1960, the Supreme Court said preamble is not even part of the constitution, because they went by the US precedent. In USA, the preamble is not considered to be part of the constitution. But in Keshwananda Bharti case, again, don't get worried. Arey, what is this Berubari case, sir? What is this Keshwananda Bharti case, sir? All these cases will be explained in detail when we come to the respective areas. When we discuss about union and its territories later, the Berubari case will be discussed. When we discuss about fundamental rights, the Keshwananda Bharti case will be discussed. So don't get bothered about it at this point of time. From preamble perspective, what is it that you should be aware of? Preamble is part of the constitution, okay? But it is not enforceable by itself. But it is very much a part of the constitution, an important part of the constitution, because the Supreme Court said it states the objects. Objects means what? Aims. Objects means aims. It states the aims which the constitution seeks to establish, and it can be used for interpreting the various provisions of the constitution. So every word has its importance and significance. We will come to it in a bit. So if you go back to the preamble, so it said, we the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. Now the words socialist and secular were added later. We will come to that in a bit. Originally in 1950 it only said sovereign, democratic republic. So what are these 5 adjectives? In fact, it was one of the mains question in 2016, which we will discuss in the in the subsequent class. Yeah, you can revise this once, and then we will discuss how to write a good answer for that question briefly, right, as part of the next class. So these adjectives describe or define India. He is a 6 foot tall man with a brown eyes, sharp nose and a very lean frame. You are describing one individual, isn't it? She is a beautiful lady with blue eyes and a long flowing hair and 5.5 feet tall, with a very lithe frame or a slender frame, slender body. You are describing an individual, isn't it? That child is a small child with chubby cheeks, you know, and the round body, and it has curly hair. You are describing. Similarly, the preamble describes India. So what are we? We are a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. So that is the description of India. And then it says, what are the objectives? Now having constituted India in this fashion, as a sovereign country, as a socialist country, as a secular country, as a democratic country, as a republican country, what is it that we want to achieve? We want to achieve justice, liberty, equality, fraternity. Yes? So sovereign, what does the word sovereign mean? Sovereign means we are supreme, the people is supreme. We don't owe allegiance to any foreign country. We are part of the Commonwealth, but we don't owe our allegiance to the British Crown, like how Australia or Canada does. We are sovereign. Our head is the president. All the decisions of the country are taken by the elected representatives of this country only. We don't owe our allegiance to any foreign power. That is the meaning of the word sovereign. Socialist and secular, as I told you, originally in 1950 when it was adopted, it was just sovereign democratic republic. In 1976 only this word socialist and secular were added. But does it mean that we were not a secular country? We have always been a secular country, and from 1950 definitely we were a secular constitution. Socialism means what? Now it's a very difficult thing to define, yeah. But in simple terms, see, there is something called as capitalism, there is something called as communism. In one of the famous movies, I just watched that movie a few days back also on TV during the lockdown period. Yeah, one very famous Tamil hero, he is asked by his sister, brother, please tell me what is communism in simple terms, right? And he says, if you have one more idli than what you are hungry for, then that idli is someone else. That is communism, right? So I was just reminded of that. But anyways, that is a cinematic dialogue. But capitalism, communism, in between somewhere lies socialism. What is capitalism? Capitalism is when means of production. What are means of production? You need raw material to produce something. Now this laptop, this camera, this watch, it requires raw material, it requires labor, someone has to make it. It requires capital, because without putting money you will not buy the equipment and the raw materials, you will not be able to pay wages, and it requires an enterprise, isn't it? You need to have a factory or a setup where you can make it. So these are what are called as means of production. And if these are privately owned predominantly, then it is capitalism. Private parties own it. USA is a classical example, is an example of a very highly capitalistic country. And communism is just the opposite, where all these are owned by the government. Now you don't have 100% capitalist country, you don't have 100% communist country, right? But USA is more towards capitalism, whereas countries like, let's say, Russia, China is communist only in name, right? Now for all practical purposes it is not. Cuba, right? Venezuela, all these are examples of some communist countries where majority of these factors of production, means of production, are owned by the government. And socialism is in between, where you will privatize also, you will own some of the assets also yourself, right? And India, we are opening up now. At the time of independence, we wanted to be socialistic. We wanted to own a lot of means of production. That is why all dams, all roads, all heavy electrical companies like Bharat Heavy Electricals and so many other things, all airports, even telephones, BSNL, MTNL, everything was under the government control, because the government wanted to ensure that industrialization happens, because private people did not also have so much of money in our country at that point of time. But whatever said and done, now that is a separate discussion on capitalism, communism, socialism. I just told you to give you an example. So socialism is where it is owned by the government also, but also private parties, because we had Tatas, Birlas also at that point of time in our country, isn't it? So there was a debate in the Constituent Assembly whether we should have the word socialist in the preamble or not. But Dr. Ambedkar finally said no. He rejected it, and the Constituent Assembly also agreed to it. He said, putting what is the economic ideal, because at that point of time we wanted to be socialist because we are a poor country, but from 1990s we have privatized, we have liberalized, we have globalized. Now we allow foreign direct investment even in defense. You would have seen the announcements by the finance minister few weeks back, right? So we want to set up, we want to attract foreign investment, we want to privatize, we want to ensure that there is abundant growth. So, but we do have welfare schemes even now. We have old age pension, we have Mahatma Gandhi Rural Employment Guarantee Act, which gives 100 days of work to the poor. We still take care of the needs, of the elderly, and the health insurance scheme like the Ayushman Bharat scheme. So we still have it, but Ambedkar said, let's not put it in the preamble, and that is why it was not put. But in 1976, it finally got into the preamble. Secular, again, when we discuss the fundamental rights in detail later, I will tell you what is the Western notion of secularism, what is the Indian notion of secularism, how it is different. All those right now, let's not break our head about it. It will be discussed in detail when we discuss the fundamental rights, right to religion. So you can wait for that. But in simple terms, they said, it can create confusion, the word secular, because the Western understanding of the word secular and the Indian understanding of the word secular is different. More importantly, the provisions itself bring out the secular credentials of our country. There is no need to put it specifically in the preamble. And that is why it was also not added. But that doesn't mean that they were not secular. Please remember, right? There are a lot of WhatsApp forwards I have seen by all right-wing people who have said that, Indira Gandhi made a mistake, she added the word secular in 1976, before that we were not a secular country. Rubbish. We have always been a secular country from 1950 and we will continue to be a secular country, right? Because secularism is a basic structure of the Indian constitution which cannot be changed by anyone, right? So, in many ways I find that, I feel personally that putting the word secular is better, so that it reminds the people in power that okay, we are a secular country, right? But anyways, so this was the reason why it was not added, because as I told you, Western versus Indian interpretation of secularism, what is it? We will discuss when we discuss the freedom of religion under the fundamental rights. But they also felt that the provisions themselves bring out the secular credentials, there is no need to add them specifically. But again, Mrs. Indira Gandhi's government in 1976, the parliament added it during emergency, the word secular also, right. So this is the history to it. Democratic, democracy, no explanation required, we are a democracy country, right. Anybody can fight elections, anybody can vote, of course, that's what democracy is. But it results in some unwanted elements also getting into our parliament and assemblies that we cannot help, yeah, or we can definitely help by choosing the right people. But we are a democratic country, right, where there is separation of powers, where there is elections, where there is accountability of the elected representatives to the people, right. So all that is there. And finally, republic. So what do you mean by republic? Republic means you will have an elected head. Please understand, guys, a republic need not be a democracy, and a democracy need not be a republic. Classic example of a democracy which is not a republic. Can you think? I'll give you 2 seconds, 5 seconds. You should be able to immediately jump to the answer. A democracy which is not a republic. United Kingdom, England, the oldest democracy in the world, from where our democratic traditions have also, we have taken it, modeled it on the basis of the British system. It is a democracy, no doubt. It is the oldest democracy in the world, right? But it is not a republic. Why? Because who is the head of that state? Who is the head of that country? The king. The king is just a nominal head. He does not have the real powers. He will just only go as per the advice given to him by the elected Prime Minister and Council of Ministers. But it is not a republic. It is called the United Kingdom. Japan is not a republic. It has its own king who is the head of the state. So, democracy need not be a republic. United Kingdom, Japan and all are examples. A republic where the head is elected need not be a democracy, because people may not directly elect them. There could be a party which may elect it. Classic example, the dragon, our neighbor, who is creating so much of problem for us, right, in Ladakh region, in Doklam region, People's Republic of China. It is called Republic of China. It's not a democracy. But Xi Jinping is not the permanent head, or Xi Jinping's, it's not hereditary that Xi Jinping's son or daughter will lead the country automatically. It may happen like that.